You hear the screeching of an owl, you hear the wind begin to howl. You know there's zombies on the prowl, and it's terror time again. They've got you running through the night. It's terror time again, and you just might die of fright. It's a terrifying time.
It's time for you to learn how to sew quickly. Would you say tailor swiftly? Zing! But yes, on today's episode of the Beginner's Guide, we'll be covering one of the more recently added non-combat skills to the game, that being tailoring. But before we begin, I'd like to ask you to support the content down below with a like, comment about the video, or your Zomboid experience. I love hearing them. And subscribe for more content like this. One last thing before we start the video. I'd like to give a shout out to Katophoenix. She did a lovely job on the artwork. Be sure to check her out down below in the description. Now let's start, shall we? To locate supplies for tailoring, you'll have to ransack houses, medical stashes, and hardware spots for the thread, needles, and padding you'll require. Thread can be acquired in several ways, either found in spools or from ripping apart clothing and salvaging the threads and sheets. These sheets can also be used as padding for the material. You'll also have to locate a pair of scissors if you want to slice apart jeans and other thicker, harder clothing to make denim strips, which protect you more effectively from zombie scratches and bites. But if you want to provide the best possible protection, you'll have to rip apart leather clothing into strips with the scissors. Keep an eye out for sewing kits as well. These can be found in homes and such, and provide you with a supply of needles, thread, and a convenient little box to keep some resources in if you like to organize that way. And I like the little sewing box. Tailoring has two primary uses. These are protection and repair. Using the strips of leather, sheets, or denim you acquired from destroying your neighbor's wardrobes, you can patch the holes in your clothing or add additional patches on the clothing that protect from bites and scratches. The best benefit of this is the fact you can turn regular everyday clothes that normally provide no protection and make them more effective, and combine these with better protective clothings over layers to max out or nearly max your protection chances. The ripped sheets provide the least protection overall, starting out at a measly 1% protection and only going up 1% of protection for each level, capping out an additional 5% of protection against scratches per piece of clothing bolstered. This isn't exactly the best, but it can be used to grind XP for cheap if you want to save your better materials for when you've reached a higher level. The next step up in protection, however, is denim strips. More abundant than leather strips, but slightly less than ripped sheets, and requiring a tool to craft. Denim strips provide 1% of bite protection and 2% of scratch protection per every 2 levels, which caps out 5% bite and 10% scratch protection at max level. Not the greatest of bite protection, but twice as effective at scratch defense, and either way it still boosts your percent to avoid the damage entirely. The best and most effective, however, is leather strips. Made from cutting apart any leather clothing you could find, like leather jackets or vests, this provides 2% bite and 4% scratch per every 2 levels, which caps out at 10% bite and 20% scratch. Now this is a solid defense boost and will definitely give you an edge in combat situations that get messy. The other benefit of a high tailoring skill is the fact that at level 8 you gain the ability to repair some clothing of its damage instead of just patching holes. This is beneficial because this lets you restore some of the original protection value if it was a piece like, say, a leather jacket, and then add pads and patches as bonus protection. Now keep in mind that this doesn't work with every piece of clothing, such as special clothing like the firefighter's pants. Once those lose their durability, you're up shit's creek without a paddle on that one, my friend. Taking the sewer trait is currently the only way to gain a skill level in tailoring and thus start off with an 75% XP boost, or fast learner for a 25% boost across the board. The only other way to bolster the tailoring skill is via the tailoring books, but unlike the other series of books, this one seems quite elusive. I've not found them very often within my runs, and and even when I did, most of the time it wasn't the one I needed. Currently, tailoring is also one of the least fleshed out skills. I'd like for it to have some additional uses, such as, say, maybe adding additional insulation on the body parts that have the padding. I think that'd be an excellent way to make the skill more useful, because as is, there just isn't a lot of incentive to bother taking sewer or to focus on tailoring at all. You're better off instead taking the time to build up that skill level, build up the knowledge to avoid and handle situations that lead to the bites and scratches to begin with. But it's not useless, it can definitely still give you the edge in a situation. Well, now you should have a good idea of everything you currently need to know to use tailoring in Zomboid. While certainly not the most robust of skills, it's still relatively new in the grand scheme of Zomboid updates, and like most things in the recent overhaul build, it's still seen some additions such as the sewing kits and books that make it more viable, so they'll probably be expanding upon it as they go. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please be sure to support it down below. This is the core. I'll see you in the next part, and if they ever drastically expand tailoring, expect to see a part 2 to this one.